Michael Landon Jr. spent most of his life trying to escape a name that millions worshipped. And the irony is that the man behind that name turned out to be nothing like the father America thought they knew. When you grow up as the son of one of television's most beloved stars, people assume you've won some cosmic lottery. But Michael's childhood was defined by a betrayal so public and painful that it derailed his entire teenage years and sent him spiraling into a darkness he barely survived. His father played the perfect dad on screen for decades, charming families across the country with shows like Little House on the Prairie and Highway to Heaven. Yet behind closed doors, the reality was messier, more complicated, and ultimately heartbreaking in ways that Michael is only now willing to discuss openly. Born in June 1964 to Michael Landon and his second wife Lynn No, Michael Jr. entered a world of privilege that most kids couldn't imagine, growing up surrounded by Hollywood royalty and spending his childhood running around the set of Little House on the Prairie, where his father worked as actor, director, and producer all at once. Those early years gave him a backstage education in filmmaking before he even knew what a career path looked like, and he got to see his dad's playful side too. Watching him pull pranks on set by hiding frogs in his mouth and spitting them out to shock the crew. The experience seemed magical at first, like getting a golden ticket to an exclusive world. But the weight of being Michael Landon's son came with expectations that felt impossible to meet. Private schools and luxurious homes became part of his normal routine, and the cast members from his father's show became like extended family, creating bonds that lasted long after the cameras stopped rolling. Everything shattered when Michael was just 15 years old. His father, the man who played devoted husbands and loving fathers on television, started an affair with Cindy Clerico, a makeup artist half his age who worked on the same set where young Michael had spent his childhood. The discovery devastated him, and what followed was a messy divorce that played out in every tabloid and gossip show across the country, turning his family's private pain into public entertainment. Lynn No, his mother, had given nearly 2 decades to supporting Landon's rise to fame, and now she watched him build a new life with a younger woman while their children tried to make sense of the wreckage. Michael felt rage he couldn't control, anger at his father for abandoning them, anger at the media for turning their suffering into headlines, and anger at himself for ever putting his dad on a pedestal in the first place. His siblings struggled alongside him, each processing the family's collapse in different ways, and watching them suffer only intensified his fury at the situation. The divorce triggered something dark in Michael, and he started acting out in ways that scared everyone who cared about him. Drinking became regular, substances followed, and reckless behavior turned into a pattern he couldn't break, culminating in getting kicked out of the University of Southern California Film School in 1983. He drove too fast, crashed cars multiple times, and surrounded himself with people who encouraged his self-destruction rather than pulling him back from the edge. Friends from his childhood watched him spiral, unable to reach the person they once knew beneath all that pain and rebellion. Watching his father marry Cindy on Valentine's Day that same year, already pregnant with their first child, felt like the final betrayal, confirmation that Landon had replaced his first family entirely and moved on without looking back. The California beach wedding in Malibu happened while Michael and his siblings were still picking up pieces from the wreckage, and soon Cindy gave birth to Jennifer, followed by a son named Sean, completing the new family that seemed to erase the old one. What saved Michael came through an unexpected source. His mother, Lynn, broken and searching for answers after the divorce, started attending church after her manicurist, Lois, suggested that faith in Jesus Christ might offer the healing she desperately needed. Lynn embraced Christianity and kept inviting Michael to join her, but he resisted for months until finally agreeing just to end her persistence. That first service hit him differently than he expected, and the pastor's words felt directed straight at his heart, cutting through years of bitterness and resentment. Michael had believed in God in some distant, vague way his entire life, mostly through rare visits to church with his grandparents. But faith had never become personal until that moment. When the altar call came, Michael stood up and gave his life to Christ, and from that moment the desire for drinking and substances simply vanished, replaced by something he'd been missing all along. The transformation didn't happen overnight, and issues of anger and forgiveness took years to work through. But Christ revealed them gradually and helped him address each one as his spiritual journey continued. Christianity didn't fix everything overnight, but it gave Michael a framework for processing anger and practicing forgiveness, concepts that seemed impossible when he was drowning in rage. Learning to forgive his father took years of work, and Michael came to understand that forgiveness wasn't about excusing betrayal, but about freeing himself from the prison of bitterness. His reasoning became clear through his faith, questioning why he wouldn't extend the same grace to others that God had shown him despite all his past mistakes and failures. He married Sherry Gregory in December 1987, building a relationship based on faith and mutual respect rather than Hollywood glamour, and together they created the stable family life he'd never experienced growing up. Sherry brought quiet elegance and unwavering support to their partnership, and their marriage became the foundation for raising children with privacy and normalcy instead of constant public scrutiny. Career-wise, Michael tried acting initially because how could the son of Michael Landon not give it a shot? But standing in front of cameras never felt right, and the constant comparisons to his father's legacy became suffocating. Directing and producing spoke to him more deeply, specifically creating faith-based family entertainment that carried emotional weight without the scandals and darkness that defined too much of Hollywood. Projects like the Love Comes Softly series and When Calls the Heart found massive audiences hungry for stories about hope, redemption, and family values, and Michael discovered he'd inherited his father's gift for touching hearts through storytelling, just using a different approach. The Love Comes Softly franchise, adapted from Jeanette Okey's beloved books, became a television movie phenomenon that ran for years, exploring themes of loss and finding faith during life's hardest moments. Basically everything Michael had lived through personally. When Calls the Heart emerged as his biggest success, a period drama set in the early 1900s filled with romance and strong moral values that attracted devoted fans called the Hardys, who continue supporting the show with passion that rivals any fan base in entertainment history. The shadow of his father's fame followed him everywhere, and Michael admitted that living up to the Landon name created pressure that sometimes felt unbearable, making him question whether he'd ever step out from behind that legacy and become his own person. One realization he had to accept was that being the child of a movie star as successful as his father might mean living an ordinary life rather than matching that same level of fame, and accepting that truth brought unexpected freedom. His father's 1991 death from pancreatic cancer came fast, just 3 months after diagnosis, and in those final moments, Landon expressed regret about not spending more time with family, specifically wishing he'd traveled with them more instead of chasing the next project. Michael took those words to heart when raising his own children, ensuring his kids grew up with the stability and attention he'd craved during his own childhood. Unlike his father, who sacrificed presence for success, Michael made family his priority, refusing to let work come before the people who mattered most and creating boundaries that protected his home life from the demands of the entertainment industry. His children grew up differently than he did, shielded from Hollywood's constant glare and raised with faith as the central pillar of their family values. Michael and Sherry worked intentionally to build a home environment where love and moral guidance mattered more than fame or fortune, giving their kids the childhood Michael wished he'd experienced. The choice to live more privately meant his children could develop their own identities without the crushing weight of a famous surname defining every move they made or every friendship they formed. Looking back, Michael Jr. forged a path that honored his father's storytelling legacy while staying true to his own vision, creating work that impacts culture through faith rather than fame. The Hardys, devoted fans of When Calls the Heart, represent the kind of passionate audience his father commanded, and Michael appreciates their unwavering support, recognizing that quality programming transcends generations when it speaks to universal human experiences. People still approach him regularly to share how his father's work provided hope during difficult childhoods, with some admitting they wished Michael Landon could have been their father, testimonies that once overwhelmed even Landon himself. His journey from rebellion to redemption, from bitterness to forgiveness, reflects the very themes he now brings to life on screen, proving that sometimes the most powerful stories come from the deepest personal struggles. The legacy Michael carries forward isn't about matching his father's fame, but about using the gifts of storytelling and production to create content that brings families together and offers genuine hope to viewers searching for something meaningful in their entertainment choices.